All right, everybody, this is Jim Hamilton. Let's see. This call, this video started out as a call with some people in Ottawa, Canada, and somebody in New Jersey. And it has grown. It's been going on for about 3 months, and I'll bet you Moto's going to tell me it's been going on a lot longer than that. So several of us that are normally on this call will be showing up. We talk about the most interesting things. My company, Core Resonance, is really kind of the center of it. In fact, Moto, Japanese gentleman, he's an engineer. He's retired now. He was asking some questions of another individual up there in Ottawa, and I got involved in answering some of the questions, some of his spiritual queries, if you will. And out of that came what moved into we started with, we eventually worked our way up to Skype, and so I guess we've been doing Skype now for a while. And so now this will be our first live video. These guys were just sent the link. There we go. There's Michael. Hey, Michael.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. You?
I'm doing good. I'm just making stuff up. We are live. Moto will be here in just a second.
Okay.
So since we're live, we should wish Kita a happy birthday, right?
Happy birthday, Kita. She's not going to be joining us, but it'll be still a happy birthday for her.
There we go. And there's Moto.
Hi, Jim.
How you doing, Moto? So I was just introducing so we're live, so that means this is Google Hangouts on air. Of course, what we're doing here is learning how to use it so we can do these things ourselves and get familiar with all of it. I was just suggesting just a little bit that how this whole thing started out. Kita and Moto were talking by email and invited me to contribute to some of the questions that Moto had, and Kita added a few other people, like John Moore was there for a little while, and then Michael came, and Kita's not here today, but what we're going to do is see if we can pick up wherever we were last time. And I think what the value of this call is, this presentation or this call, is that it becomes it becomes a recording, and we'll let it be up, and maybe it will draw people interested in the things we're talking about. So, any thoughts on all of that?
No, I think that's a good idea. It's the beginning, sort of like where a lot of people are going using online tools and spreading a good message out there, which will compete against a lot of stuff that people can consume on YouTube and other places. I think it's good to be able to share something that's valuable.
And we're comparing thoughts. We're having sometimes not differences of ideas, but we get to explore the different things that come up. Moto, you have any thoughts?
One of the best things of this entire conversations we have been having for probably like half a year or so is that we do not reject anybody's thoughts and feelings. We are all very open to anyone else's thoughts, and we got it and come back with the thoughts. That is very unlikely to happen in their daily life, unfortunately. So that is one of the most I feel the most valuable of what I've been being involved in this conversation.
Okay, so will you take responsibility each week for reminding everybody that that's part of our protocol?
I sure will.
Would you do something else, possibly? Try You sounded so much better with your headset last time. You're really, I'd say I heard about 2/3 of what you said. That's it.
Okay. Well, I've been using laptops, and today I'm using my desktop. I think it works better today, but my connection is not very stable because it's wireless. So I'm happy to hear that it's better today.
What about using your headset? Would you do that?
I sure will. Okay. All right.
It was much better. Much better. How I sound okay, don't I?
Yeah, you are coming in clear.
Okay. So I think that's one of the things we want to do is to make sure that we're. In other words, the harder it is to listen to us, the harder it is to listen to us. So I think easier is better. Michael, okay, so what Moto said, I think, was one of the he said this group's been is 6 months old. That's been quite, I said 3 months. I didn't think that was right, but it's been going for quite some time.
Give me a moment.
Okay, yeah, take your time. We're good. And so I think it's cool that we can move to this kind of a format. We've actually gone through a couple of formats, but what he basically said was people that, in this group and what we've done, we've been very open to each other, allowed each other to express, and it was one of the ideas that we had was that we were going to, when I say do our best, we were going to make sure that we each had an opportunity to express ourselves, find our commonalities, of course, and in some respects, respect our differences or discern our differences as well. Michael, where do you think we should start? We were talking about some of your stuff. Where would we want to touch on?
Well, last time we were talking about, I guess, unconditional love, and we were talking also about the concept that I'm working on in regards to bubbles of energy and how our wounds, our emotional wounds, get trapped into bubbles of energy, and they start running just like a computer program, and we become sort of forced to act out these programs whenever we encounter anything that is similar to the emotional wound that created that program.
So we're kind of victims of our own stuff in a way, at least initially, right?
Correct. When we encounter any kind of situation that creates unsettled emotions within us and we can't deal with them, they get stored into our bodies as energy. And this energy interacts with any energy that is similar to the energy what created it. So if some reason you were scared very much by a dog when you were 5 years old, well, then that thought of a scary dog will become lodged into your body as an energy bubble, and any time that you will encounter dogs from then on, this program will start running on its own. And the more programs we have, the less free will we have, because these programs, they run by themselves. They will make you act and react based on whatever program created them.
So I wonder, we didn't talk about this last time, but I wonder if you could have programs or these little, they're not colonies, but it's consciousness, right? Isn't it consciousness in a way?
Yeah, I believe that these bubbles of energy have their own free will in a sense, but it's a program. So they're not free to act, but it is, I do believe that it is a certain form of intelligence. And I also believe that these bubbles can interact with each other, these bubbles of energy. And bubbles of energy that are related can actually combine and create a bigger intelligence. So if you had 5 encounters with dogs that scared you, then these 5 programs, because they are very similar in energy, they can actually combine and create a bigger kind of program.
Matt, can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Is that good or bad?
I think it's better than it was.
Yeah, it's better. The
Okay.
A little bit
before
early to tell.
your voice was
So I'm using a headset with a microphone here.
Oh,
Different one from last time.
it's much better.
Anyway,
Much better, Moto. Much better.
okay, thank you. The question to Michael is that where do you think that physically those bubbles are stored?
they are I believe they are stored in your energy body. So we have the physical body that we all see, and then we have the energy body, which is made up of energy. And I believe that these bubbles are stored in your energy body, but they also interact physically with your body. They can cause certain illnesses, pains. They can actually manifest themselves as disease or illness, depending on the size of the bubbles of energy. When they become too big, when they are unkept, that is, when people let them become bigger and bigger, that is when they will start causing disease and illness and different pains in your body, arthritis, different kinds of things.
Well, if I say that in our brains we have gazillions of neurons, which makes all kinds of different circuitries, and that I think might hold that bubble to feed the bubble, to keep the bubble. Do you think that is a little bit wrong thoughts, or?
I believe that there is a link between how our brains form and the interconnectedness of the brain itself, the physical aspect. I believe that there is a link between that and our energy body. And it could very well be that our brain mimics the same kind of structure as our energy body. And they do have a certain link in a sense.
Did you learn that from?
Okay.
Do you intuit that, or do you take that out of other people's written material, Michael?
For the most part, what I've just discussed, I intuited it.
Okay, cool.
So I read many books, but I have not really read anything that is related to these bubbles of energy. And I mean, a lot of people will talk about emotional wounds that are stored in your body. That I've read before. The link between how our brain structure creates itself in regards to if it's possible that it mimics our energy body, that I've never heard before.
I think that's kind of standard operating procedure, that the physical body is the last place things show up, and so the energy body and just I don't want to be as simple as the aura, but but as it descends into physicality, it becomes real. But the different kinds of problems, they start somewhere else, and certain kinds of healers can see that, and they try to catch it before it hits the physical body, you might say, before it actually manifests.
Yeah, I think if it's left for too long, then it has a chance of manifesting itself in the physical body. Like emotional wounds that are there for too long can cause disease and illness. But depending on the size, if they're small, they might not be big enough to create that kind of energy required for them to manifest in the physical realm. But once they start becoming bigger and bigger, they start drawing in more energy so that they do have the energy to cross that bridge into the physical world and create the whatever pattern they have within the physical body.
I actually have stuff going on with myself where I'm starting to address that. In other words, I have maybe a couple of what I would call weaknesses in my physical body. Like I've got a little spot up here, and so I'm starting to pay more attention to my system. And there's so many different components, but you let it go or you start to address it. And of course, you address it outside your body a great deal. Any thought, Moto?
To whom?
I was just asking if you had any thoughts, any comment.
Hmm. Well, I myself is not highly spiritual. I don't deny any supernatural things, and I do accept them, but I find myself more to, always look for the scientific evidence kind of thing. And Michael's this bubble energy theory really fits to fill the gap in between my two sides, the spiritual and the scientific side. And I've been really appreciating, and I can even feel or picturize how it works. So I really thank you, Michael. It was wonderful, wonderful thing. I don't know how you created it, but you, after reading so many books and all of this, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I give you my Nobel Prize.
Thank you. Yeah, for me, I guess I always keep an open mind on everything, and and I never settle for what I read. Like if I read something that's really good and I connect to it, I still move on to the next step. I won't stay and linger and fall in love with one theory or one concept. And for me, I believe that all the truths are hidden everywhere in everything, and it's the goal and the task is to connect all the dots. Um, and for me, the more I connect to the truth, the more I can sort of feel this kind of energy. So when I connect to something that feels right, it actually feels right to me. It's as if the truth has a flavor, and once you start to taste it, you are able to find it in different things. Like if you read a book, and the author talks about 20 different concepts, and you can start telling which one are closer to the truth and which one are further away from the truth, depending on that feeling that you get from it. And I think that is something that I'm really trying to develop more, is that that kind of sense of being able to feel the truth when I connect to it. And I think it has helped me a great deal in regards to creating my own concepts. If I find a piece of truth in one place and a piece of truth in another, and then I start putting them together.
Right.
Well, truth is kind of like a homing beacon. I mean, you can home in on the truth, and you can have 20 different things, and one of them will resonate as we become more sensitized to knowing the difference. That's actually how we find our way home.
Yeah, go ahead, Modo.
Well, I think the religion is one of the good examples. It's all different protocols, but an ultimate goal is all the same. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I believe that there are truths in every religion, but it's just that to filter out what has been diluted throughout the years.
Right. So they have their own taste, their likings, and all this stuff. But what they are striving for should be all the same. Come to the same point, the divine or God, and whatever you call.
Well, and that's what we're learning how to do, all of us. Every one of us at our own speed.
Yeah, unfortunately, the truth has been diluted so much throughout the few thousands of years since religion have taken over the ancient teachings. So we have created a whole lot of new things that we have to filter out to try to connect to the truth. So it's a lot more of a lengthy process.
I was going to say, we don't get truth through others anyway. We only get it direct. Anytime truth goes through another, there's always going to be distortion. And I think that's why following, you can get hints from writings of some people, but we really do have to go direct, because it's just like passing a message through 5 or 6 people or even a couple of people. The message gets changed every time it touches a consciousness or touches somebody, and unless we're absolutely clear, there's distortion. And so while there's been lots of hints over time about the truth, it's direct. You got to go direct.
Right. As I was saying about connecting to the truth, when I read it or hear someone talk, I do mean it as in connect to the truth, not listen to the truth or not read the truth. The truth can only come from inside of you, but it's to be able to dislodge it from wherever it is inside of you, to be able to remember it. You need outside things to be able to pull the truth out from within yourself. So I connect to the truth through other things that I read, but it is coming from inside of me.
The resonance, knowing the difference.
Yeah.
Moto, there's a book that I'm reading that you might get a kick out of. It's called, I think it's called Proof of Heaven.
Proof of Heaven.
Proof of Heaven. A friend of mine in Dallas sent it to me. He says, what this guy says is what my stuff says, but it's a neurologist, a neurosurgeon who had a full-blown coma for 7 days, and he just one day woke up and he was back. And his description, first off, from a scientist's perspective, they absolutely dismiss these near-death experiences. I don't spend any time with them because it's a lot of, I don't want to call it phenomena, but in a way it's what it is, because it's not direct. It's somebody else's experience. But you might get a kick out of his book, Eben Alexander. I wonder where that book is. I think you'd like it. It's relatively simple read, and his writing style is wonderful, and he's been out there now maybe 2.5 years, I do not know. Maybe it's been 4. But he had a kind of spinal meningitis or something. A bacteria was eating his brain, and they were only just minutes from unplugging him. And he sat up, and the story he tells of being on the other side is frankly extremely fascinating. I don't know, it ties religion and spirituality together, but it sure brings dimension to a component of understanding if there's the scale of order maybe that we all abide by, or how very big it is, and actually, for lack of a better expression, how very much we're all loved.
Oh, talking. I'm sorry.
I started to say, let me go grab. I'm not positive where that book is. I want to grab it and make sure I got the title right, but I think that's right.
1 second.
Michael, the first physicist I worked with, a guy by the name of Vern Wolf, W-O-O-L-F, he now lives in Arizona, he used to be in California. I helped him get his 10 books published, and we did some seminars together. His first book is called Holodynamics, the whole dynamic. And he kind of talks about what you talk about. I think it's more than just energy, emotional stuff. But he talked about holodynes and clearing holodynes back down to their origination. I worked with him for a couple of years, found his stuff interesting. You might find the book Holodynamics interesting.
What does he refer to as holodynes?
The way I would describe it is a distortion. I see a holodyne as like a grass reed that has stalks, or has a stalk, and it has segments in the stalk, and it's like the root is in the truth, and so that's how it grows as a stalk. But it has distortion, and the distortion is not only beliefs, but accumulating beliefs that line up. It's actually been quite a while now. I think Scientology talks about engrams, which I'm not really, I'm not up to date on either one of them very well. I think engrams, the Scientology thing, is basically just emotional stuff. I know you're talking about something much more complex. And I think Vern Wolf's work, holodynamics I don't know if it's .org or what. The holodynamics book might be interesting. I think it's relatively simple, but I've been around his material. He's a very fascinating guy, a true quantum physicist and interesting character. But I think his work lines up with your thoughts a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, talking about the book, recently I got to know one very decent person who is currently an antique dealer. And while we are talking a number of different things, he told me that he wrote a book, and he sent me one copy, and which is this one. And it's Reality. Reality. And I read only the what is that, preface or whatever, the first page. But it seems to be a pretty nice book, and if you are interested, I'd like to send you a copy, and you too, and if you have time, can you take a look on it?
Well, it's a nice looking cover, and it's a great title, so why not?
Oh, sure, okay. Then, well, this person is, well, you can visit his antique site, www.edgarlowen.com. Edgar, EDGAR Owen, OWEN.com. You will find him.
Edgar with an A?
Edgar L.
How do you spell
L. Owen. A-E-D.
Okay, G-A-R.
L.
Okay.
OWEN.com.
Cool.
We got to know only less than 2 months, but every time I got together with him, I always enjoy talking his decency. Very nice person.
Decency.
He's probably. Excuse me?
I said decency is a good word. Say he's a decent person. I like that.
Thank you. Well, I'm gonna get a copy and send it over to you. Michael, let me know your address, okay?
Okay.
Michael, I got a question for you. We were talking about the energetic, you call them bubbles, and how they kind of have a mind of their own. So, in other words, they have their own survival mechanism, and their identity,
Right.
which basically is variations of resistance or whatever it is drives them. The question is, can those, let's just call them a colony, maybe I don't want to use the term colony, the bubbles of energy. Could you create bubbles of energy that serve you instead of interfere?
I think that's it's a bit of a difficult thing to do because bubbles of energy, by their very nature, are against life. They are against the divine. They actually block the connection of the divine. They are programs. They use energy that is not of the divine. They use energy that we find in the physical world. Like, for instance, fear, hatred, jealousy. They use that kind of energy. So yes, in a sense, I believe that it could be possible for you to get them to serve your purpose, but understanding that is sort of like trying to enslave a demon. You know, it has its own mind, and it's selfish, and it has a big ego, and it is against the divine. But for certain things, you might be able to coerce it to pull you towards a place where you want to go. But it would be a very tricky thing to do, and it could very well backfire on you.
Well, the reason I wonder, you want to say something, Moto?
Yeah, as you just explained, Michael, is I can give you one good example: the obesity. Obesity is caused by mostly the fat cells we have. There are 3 different fat cells. The situation which is one a gene that some person have way more fat cells than average, and fat cells that you eat too much and make it bigger, and other fat cells that turn out to be even like a demon, which is, you know, gobbling anything in it. And each day's fat cell has its own bubble of energy. And once you start feeding it and too much, then they get used to have too much. And that energy will not disappear very easily. It takes very long time to make it smaller. So bubble of energy is, I don't know, it's, oh my God, my English is just so poor. I don't know if it's there originally, but once you have it and you feed it, it will just continue to grow, unless you make a double effort to make it smaller. Am I making sense to you?
Yeah, I believe. Well, before a person gets obese, I believe that it starts in the energy body, and at some point, that's when you keep feeding your energy body, you keep feeding this program, and then this program starts taking over, and then it manifests itself into the physical body. And so it is very difficult to undo, because you have to deal with the physical body and then deal with the energy body, and you have to deal with the programming that you have accustomed to overeating. So you have to get yourself healthy and then reprogram those bubbles of energy, or better yet, you let them go. When you let go of your bubbles of energy, then you are free of them. You are free of the suffering that they can cause you.
So how do you let go of it?
You have to remove the sources that created them. These bubbles of energy, it's like stepping into the ring for a fight. Regardless if you win or if you lose, just the fact that you show up for the fight, they draw energy from that. So really, it requires a tremendous deal of letting go. If you fight against them, or if you indulge in them, either way you give them energy, because they feed off of that energy. But the divine, which is unconditional love, can dissipate these bubbles of energy. But you have to stop feeding them. So whatever the emotional wounds are, you need to remove yourself from the situations that keep them energized. You have to get out of the habits that keep them energized. Because as long as they are drawing in energy, you will not be able to get rid of them. It's like when electricians work on very powerful cables. They can't just unplug the very powerful cable. It doesn't work that way. The electricity kind of binds the cable. They have to power down the system. And these bubbles of energy, it's the same thing. If they're very small, fine, but if they're bigger, you have to remove the energy that they feed off of until they get to a very low state of energy. Then with letting go and unconditional love, you can get rid of them for good.
You know, what you're talking about is really very similar to what I talked about with core resonance. It is a little bit different. My work says that there are patterns, that we have patterns and habits that are funded or founded in variations of resistance, and resistance continues to feed them, and until we move to love, in other words, really that you can sit there with the mind and try to dissipate them and try to control and move away from what you don't want, but it doesn't work very well, and ultimately, like these last couple articles I've written are about allowing. Allowing is kind of a variation on unconditional love. It's a step in that direction, and I think probably the difference is I'm not sure that they have their own identity. I see them as just as patterns and habits. In other words, if the brain's on overload, we have patterns and habits. We didn't choose them consciously. They showed up unconsciously, trying to escape skinning your knee the next time, or I like to say, the kiss you didn't get, or avoiding the things that we don't want to happen in our life, and we settle into patterns and habits. And of course, as we get closer to plugging into the divine, that stuff becomes less. Resistance fades as we plug into what's true. But clearly, one of the things we both agree on is that the divine or innate intelligence, whatever you want to call it, does dissipate this issue that we all deal with in some manner or another. These uncontrollable things that seem to control our lives, these quote-unquote demons that direct a lot of our choices and habits that we seem powerless to do anything about. It's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, for me, I believe like what we call demons or evil are just these bubbles of energy that have become so big, and the bigger they are, the more sentient they become, and the more power they have to mess around with your life. Because they know you inside and out. They know your fears. They know what your plans are making for the future. They know all of these things. So when they want to start to mess around with you, they can, because they know you more than you know yourself. And any kind of energy that is not unconditional love that you direct their way, they feed off of. If you try to understand them, it gives them energy. If you run away from them, if you run towards them, if you're afraid of them, if you indulge in them, any kind of energy like that feeds them.
Center of attention.
Right, exactly. It's like it is part of the ego. These bubbles of energy. The combination of all of your bubbles of energy create your ego. The only really thing that can help you power down these bubbles of energy is to just keep sending them unconditional love, compassion, understanding, peace, balance. Then you start starving them. Then they can start becoming smaller and smaller and become more manageable. And then at some point, if you persist and you just keep feeding your self-love, any kind of bad habits or anything like that, and if you just keep persisting, at some point they will just vanish.
And the ego alone.
Right, and alongside your ego.
Well, one of the key word is resonance. When anything resonates, it accelerates, it makes a circle, closed circle, and starts feeding by itself, by sucking up the energy from outside. So resonance is a very important word. That's how I first attracted by core resonance, and that's how Kira introduced me to you, Jim. Resonance is a very important thing. It doubles and triples and quadruples the energy. You can just leave it, and it sucks up the energy from outside and just grow by itself.
Well, you've got resonance and you got dissonance. I don't know.
Right.
if dissonance attracts more dissonance or not. I don't know. I know resonance is what's found in common. I wouldn't know how to say how dissonance attracts. Resonance attracts.
Right.
Does resonance, so let's say there's such a thing as evil. Would there be resonance? Let's say there was such a thing as evil, and let's say there's two evil entities, or whatever they are. Would they resonate between each other? I wonder. Would that be resonance?
I believe so. I believe so.
Because dissonance, they would not be able to hear or see each other if there was dissonance. Resonance means you can see each other. The question is evil real?
Well, I believe that basically resonance is creative and dissonance is how to say destructive.
Is what?
Destructive. It doesn't match together and doesn't create anything.
Distortion.
They destroy the things.
Right.
Right. Distortion. So good thing, bad thing. In many cases, we always need a resonance. And of course, we don't need a resonance for the bad things, but resonance in between good things will accelerate good things to happen. That's basically I agree.
Okay, so let's say then, like we were talking about with Michael a little bit ago, where we learn to find the truth, and before we know what the truth is, we resonate with other things.
Mm-hmm.
We resonate and find a match for whatever we hold as our vision. In other words, nowadays, especially in this group, and we're talking about Michael, for example, and of course myself, and well, all of us, but what we're looking for is the truth, and we learn how to put things aside that don't serve discovering the truth, and we use resonance to help us learn that, because you can tell when you hit it dead on, right, Michael? You can tell when you hit divinity, even if it's for a flash of a second.
Yeah, like I said, it has its own flavor, and the more that it is coming from the divine, the stronger that kind of feeling that you get, that you say, okay, well, this is the truth. I don't need to ask myself any questions. You don't second doubt it. You don't go back 2 days later and think, oh no, I was just making it up. Once you connect to it, you connect to it. And nothing and no one can change your mind about it.
What you know is so, isn't it?
Yeah, when you really know it, you know it. You will not divert from that once you truly know it. Once you truly taste it.
What's curious though, one of the things I used to write about a lot was what you know is so, accurate or not. And so in our own evolutions, what we knew 2 years ago to be true and what we know to be true now continues to refine itself. And I think it'd be fair to say that, first off, what you know is felt as a gut feeling for sure. But even at that, I still think it continues to refine itself as you get on track, and that sense of knowing becomes even more refined as we continue to learn more about our very nature and learn more about our connection with the cosmos.
Right.
Right. I would say once you put enough effort to become that conduit, and this is a very all-encompassing field. You have to really say, okay, well, I want to vibrate at a higher frequency so I can connect with the truth more often. But there's many different steps and approaches that you need to take in regards to exercise, in regards to health, in regards to what you eat, what you think, how you act. And the more you pull all of those aspects into one direction, the more you maintain in your heart and in your mind that you want to connect with the divine every day, not just once a week or once a month, but every day in what you eat, in what you say, in what you think, in what you read, in what you listen to, then you will start raising your vibration and you will get into a better place to recognize the truth when you encounter it. Because often people encounter the truth in so many different places in their lives, but they just can't connect to it because they're
Miss
not
it
there.
altogether. Right.
But the truth is everywhere around you. In everything that you do, the truth is there. But we are so far away from it that a lot of people never really connect to it, never connect to it, even though it flows right by them. Some people, once in a while, they get that sort of peaceful moment where everything in their lives makes sense, even though their lives might be a mess in a way. They might have just lost their job. They might have just ended a very difficult relationship. But then you connect to this feeling that everything is okay, regardless. But
So, in other words, you were saying that emotion prohibits connecting to the truth.
yes, emotions, which are these bubbles of energy. The more of these bubbles of energy, the bigger they are, and they cloud you. They are very coarse energies, and they actually block the transmission from the divine. So it is very important to get that emotional healing, to let go of these wounds and let go of these bubbles of energy that are preventing you from connecting to the divine on a more regular basis.
But doesn't some of the bubbles act positively, like enhances the feeling better than, a little bit better or something?
That is just a trick for you to feed them. Happiness,
Okay.
eating the foods that you really enjoy, activities that you draw happiness from. Any kind of emotion will feed the bubbles, and they will make you feel sad specifically so that you run after happiness. Because either way, sadness or happiness, you feed them, and they will play around with you. They know you inside and out. They know what to do to get you to make you sad so that you run after happiness. And then once you have your happiness, you won't feel it for very long because they get a maximum amount of energy from changing your state from one to the other. If you just remain in the sadness mode, they will stop getting fed by energy. It's like alternative current, right? They need to get you from one state to the other, so then they get the maximum bang for their buck. So they won't leave you in sadness and they won't leave you in happiness. They'll keep you running around in circles. Because if you remain within sadness, you might actually do something different with your life. If you remain within happiness.
Okay, would you say those bubbles have its own intelligence?
Yes, yes. Like we were talking before, I really believe that they have their own intelligence. And the bigger they are, the more intelligent they become, and the more difficult it is to get rid of them. Because they become that big voice that you have inside of you that keeps pulling you away from your purpose, for one thing. Because a person that connects to their purpose fills with unconditional love, and that is a death sentence for them. They will do everything that they can to prevent you from connecting to your purpose. They will do everything that they can from preventing you from raising your vibration, because that is a death sentence to them. It's a death to the ego. It's a death sentence to these bubbles of energy. And they have their intelligence. They know what to do to prevent you from connecting to your purpose.
So basically, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say basically resistance feeds them.
Resistance feeds them and indulgence feeds them. They feed from both sides. As soon as you step into the ring, regardless of which side you choose, it doesn't matter. You're there for the fight and they get fed that way. Only unconditional love. That's it. That's the only thing.
One of the things I wasn't necessarily clear on is that they are emotion-based. Emotion is their base.
Well, you know what? I'm not sure if emotion are their base, but
Well, it's a fuel.
it is, yes, it is a fuel. I believe that they are created through an emotional imbalance with whatever situation that we find ourselves in. Um, when you don't know what to do in a certain situation, you create tension, you create fears, and that is what creates these programs. And the play of emotions feed them.
Well, see, I wonder, if all of this is of the mind, because I say mind is resistance by its very nature, and that emotion versus feeling, emotion is a conflict with a belief system. In other words, you have a belief system about something being, and beliefs are very often accurate. In fact, um, they're not accurate. Beliefs come from the mind, they're not accurate. And when you don't achieve your beliefs, to me, that's where emotion comes from. In other words, you believe you're in love, and when you fall out of love, that's a very emotional feeling. Real love is when you go your separate ways, nothing changes. You still love the person. Um, and I'm just trying to say that it sounds to me like emotion is a big component of what you're talking about here, and all of that is the realm of the mind. And so what you're describing is variations on how the mind reacts and spins off and has its own ego identities in little bitty chunks, and I don't know. I think it's an interesting conversation.
I believe, my personal belief in regards to the mind is that the inner child, the divine soul, half of it is the mind and half of it is the body. And the mind itself, I believe it is part of the divine within us. And the thing is that the mind is like the big brother, like the protector, is like Sherlock Holmes. And the task of the mind is to deprogram these programs. So it constantly goes from one program to the other to try to solve it, try to liberate yourself from this faulty program that is within you. And I believe that is what ultimately what the task of the mind is for, is to actually solve the problem of these bubbles of energy. So the mind, in a sense, it is programmed to seek out these bubbles of energy, to destroy them, to dissipate them. And it is because we live in a life that is so complicated, we keep creating these bubbles of energy, and our mind has no choice but to try to seek out these bubbles of energy, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And it never stays in one place long enough because we keep getting distracted, we keep creating more bubbles, we keep bringing our attention to a different bubble and then a different bubble, and then the mind is like our guard dog in a way, and it has to seek out where we put our attention, and it just goes from one place to the other.
Well,
Well,
to me, it looks like if you come up with some thoughts, and when it turns to the belief, that means the thought is totally covered by those bubble of energy. It's a whole big thing, and it is very hard to break it, or it turned out to be one big chunk of the core with a bubble of energy surrounded, sticking all kinds of bubbles around it. I can picturize it in a way.
These bubbles of energy, they have their own agendas. One will tell you, okay, eat another piece of pie, you deserve it, you've lost weight or something like that. And the other one will say, no, 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 it's bad for you. But it could very well be exactly the same bubble of energy that is creating this conflict specifically for you to remain in conflict, because that is one of their best tool to keep you off balance, to keep you in conflict, and to keep you second guessing yourself. That is one of the biggest tools of these bubbles of energy. Keep making you fight against your own self. And while you're doing that, you're so distracted that you lose attention to these bubbles of energy, and they just feed off of it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the bubbles for a negative side seems to be a little bit stronger than the better side, isn't it? You know, you can easily go and eat the sweet stuff more rather than trying not to eat it, or drinking or smoking or whatever it is.
Yeah, I believe that it's just like how these bubbles of energy, these that have their intelligence of their own. That's just how they keep you off balance. That just
Yeah, there are lots of Darth Vaders.
yeah, they cause doubts, they cause conflict, they cause resistance, they cause confusion, and it all of those emotions just plays right into their game.
Right.
Well, I think we're going to end this in a second. My belief is there's resonance with what's true, and then there's dissonance. There's resonance and there's dissonance. Resonance is a very fine, on one hand, a very fine sight, if you will, and dissonance is very broad. I personally wonder whether studying dissonance is worthy of its time. I'm not discounting our conversation, but I don't even know if it matters when in fact we should be putting our attention where we want to go. And you know, unconditional love is what is called for. The only thing that really dissipates this kind of thing, and resonance and dissonance. I think maybe we can continue this. You guys can continue on. It's 5 o'clock. I kind of need to go in a little bit. We can wrap it up with a couple of remarks if you'd like.
Yeah, well, maybe we can leave it off there and start back the next time on this same subject.
Sure.
Like I kind of like agree with what you say, Jim, in regards to unconditional love will dissipate everything, and in a way, just trying to figure this stuff out. For me personally, it's because it's I like to understand my process, and it is something that I'm exploring in regards to being able to share it. So for me, it's important to understand it. But if someone else really is not in the same place as I am and does not seek to understand it, or does not seek to write a book about it, and they just want to say, well, I'll just focus on unconditional love, I'll say, okay, well, that could very well work. Just focusing on unconditional love and not like filling up your mind with all the technical details about it.
Yeah, honing in on what's true. And of course, initially, you need more and more. Contrast is an important component. As you get closer, the contrast becomes more subtle.
Okay.
I'm ready. Colin,
Okay.
any final remarks, Bodo?
Not for me. I really enjoyed.
Good. So have a good
Thank you,
evening.
Jim. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you as well, Moto and Jim, and have a good evening, gentlemen.
So we'll
You
do this
too.
again. It's 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. I don't know if we can use the same link over again. I don't know. We'll figure that out.
I know next week I won't be able to make it. I have a meeting to go to on Tuesday evening, but I should be back the following week.
Very good.
Okay.
You guys have
I will try to ask my friends to join.
good.
Yeah, sure. Maybe we can have a little bit of a. I think there's we can maybe allow for questions without really maybe allowing them to jump in on the conversation, but maybe if we can consider allowing some questions.
Yeah, they could use the chat thing as one way, and I think we can turn people on and off individually. I think
There's a button on the left-hand side marked Q&A, so I wonder if that's kind of like a place where people can ask questions through.
All right. Well, let's continue next week. We'll figure it out.
Okay, sure.
All right.
All right.
And happy
Good night.
birthday, Gita. More. You guys have a great evening.
Okay, bye.
Thanks.